First of all, we're here for the retake project. We're in the studio of Noel McCready in Conway. And first question, Noel, is about the project, and which work have you chosen from the collection in the Cardiff, and why did you choose it?
I mean, I did go down to Cardiff with the vague notion of what I was looking for. I wanted to find painting with figures because I wanted to paint figures, and landscape, I suppose, is what I was thinking of as well, because I paint landscape. But nothing appeared that really excited me, and it was only on the train on the way home from Cardiff that day that I kept thinking of this very small painting that was in the gallery by Michael Andrews, who was a sort of 20th century English painter, painting in the 1950s and 60s, generally painting large pictures from what I know about him. But this was very small. It's no more. It's probably the small. I'm sure it's not the smallest, but it's one of the smallest paintings in the Cardiff gallery. It's 8 inches by 6 inches. And the reason I chose it was because it did have figures in it. It's very vague in its imagery, which was useful for me because when I looked at some of the, the masterpieces, the large paintings in Cardiff, my instinct was, where do you go from there? There's nothing I can add to that. There's nothing else I can develop in a way. Having seen the painting and decided on it, I made a drawing of it, a drawing from it, same size, and I haven't really looked at the Michael Andrews painting since then. I've just allowed my own thinking to develop, but they're all very much based, all the paintings I've done are very much based on, and identifiable, I hope, on the Michael Andrews painting. Well, whenever I'm setting out to paint a picture, I always do scribble thumbnail sketches and just jot down ideas, and the possibility was offered to us of making a journal, keeping a journal, which I have always done in a way, in that I've always had what everybody calls studio books, in which I start with first ideas and then they develop and develop and develop. And so in this case I looked at the Michael Andrews and started thinking which characteristics I wanted to include, and they were strictly visual characteristics, the 2 figures on a bed in a room. So a lot of preparation. I spend a lot of time, even with a watercolour, I spend a lot of time in preparation, in that my watercolours are not the traditional spontaneous watercolours. They're quite carefully constructed and thought through, and so even for a watercolour I will make one or several acrylic same size versions. For instance, this is a very simple painting, but it was one of the series that I was doing which had a red field. This what is on white on this was eventually a gold and red cornfield or field of red, doesn't matter whether it's and these are painted with a very limited palette, as you would imagine. I'd probably just use black, white and perhaps 2 colours, a blue and a red or something, and this often spills over into the pictures that I paint. Finally, the watercolours that I would do from this would be very basic 3 or 4 colour set, which I like. I like that, and it helps to give the painting a unity. And this is a picture that I painted lots of times with trees, and these are figures down here underneath. And these, I think, the figures that I eventually put in this watercolour are the same as 2 figures that I put in one of the big oil paintings I'm doing for the project.
Okay, so like
the advantage is that I can leave this table here and these needn't move. This is the journal, which as yet is not bound, it's not stitched. This is the painting that I did decide to use. This is the Michael Andrews. These are other little sketches that I did in Cardiff at the gallery. and I then immediately started drawing little possibilities of figures,
Right.
and the postures, and these are all, you can see in all of these, I think, I mean you probably can't see on camera, but anybody looking through it would be able to recognise which these pictures are from the final versions. They started as early as this. Here's the still life with the plate, here's the moonlight one with the river, here's the one with the trees outside, and they're all there in embryo. And sort of surprised myself that the very first thoughts have turned out to be very last thoughts as well, really.
Okay.
And then these were first versions of some of the colour sets, which again have been squared up to transfer into a bigger form. Yeah. And are very recognisably the final paintings. This one is a still life one, which started out as a blue painting, but you can see now over there, you will see it later, is not a blue painting anymore, but it still has the still life and the figures at the back. And then this was the first drawing of the still life with the table, which again I squared up to transfer onto the canvas into various pairs and various sets of figures, groups of figures. And then this is one that has turned into an outside landscape painting with figures in it. So it's not that I can't work quickly or perhaps don't want to work quickly, and although you say these are quite carefully worked out in advance and planned, that's not an element of them that I hope will be too visible. People do often say to me, I mean, for instance, I've just been showing you the acrylic versions of watercolours that I painted, and sometimes if people see both, they say, oh, I like the acrylic. I like the freedom of it, you know. And my answer to that is usually that spontaneity requires a lot of hard work, which sounds like a contradiction, but I mean that's how I feel about it. But I do like to, I mean, I suppose some people might say I have too much control over it, but you can't really control oil paint completely. I mean, there's so many things happen as you're going along that it's not, it's bound to be spontaneous. There is a spontaneity about it, even though I've been very careful about exactly where everything fitted in this, and probably I'm still going to make some changes. So there's a lot of ancillary influences. Not consciously, I couldn't actually point out that, you know, that this has any meaning or that has any meaning or this has any meaning, but sure. I think perhaps one of the reasons that I've painted them all in quite different colour sets is to do with creating some sort of mood, and in order to avoid the sort of romantic notion of lovers. I mean, I haven't painted any particular cruelty, or I haven't consciously tried to paint disappointment or frustration or unhappy ending of love affairs. These things are always in my mind, and they're always in poetry, and they're always in songs and music. I mean, there's a lovely folk song, which is usually called a Somerset folk song. It's called Waly Waly, and it's a beautiful song. It is a folk song, and the last verse of it, it's got 4 or 5 verses. The last verse of it is, "Oh, love is handsome and love is fine, and love's a jewel when it is new, but when it grows old, it groweth cold, and fades away like morning dew." So I'm going to call one of these paintings Morning Dew. I'm mystified a bit by colour. I think I mentioned in the blog that I don't feel I have any real control over colour, so I'm interested to see what happens when I do put a predominant colour, an unrealistic colour if you like, in a painting, and it is this business of creating another an unreal world, almost like a stage world, like a designed artificial world. So I mean, these are quite unreal colours, but these are the colours that I eventually decided on to paint this corner of the picture, because it's not real. It's not real, and I'm interested in seeing how I react to things which aren't real, but which are obviously a tree and the sky. I like the freedom and I like the way two reds, for instance, always sing together. I love that feeling that you can make something look even redder by putting different families of red together, and the same with the blues. I mean, you know, you put cerulean blue together with ultramarine and both of them will bounce off each other, which I really like. In the Andrews painting, there is a lamp here in the picture, which is hardly visible, certainly not in a reproduction. I can't remember whether it was visible in the actual painting, but there is a lamp here, a bedside table lamp in fact, in the Michelangelo. So I'm keeping that in this painting. There's going to be a light here, so there'll be two light sources. And again, I was interested in the colour. I mean, as I've said in the journal and in the blog, I don't feel that I'm a colourist, but I'm interested in colour, and I do love the way, I mean, this combination of colours was very taken up by Matisse and by Gauguin even, of a violet and yellow. These were, or the sort of light mauve and yellow, these were two colours which the nabbies were particularly interested in. And there is a wonderful, I think, relationship between these colours, and so that does occur throughout. And this is the sort of edge of the painting business. This is the stage set almost.
Yeah. Well, you're pushing it right to the edges in a Bonnard kind of way.
Yes, and Bonnard colour as well. And again, all of this I will leave as it is at the moment. I won't sort of tidy it up or flatten it out, because I think the paint itself is, the light is good, you know, and I just think these colours are bizarre but rather harmonious. I like them. I like this. So it's based on that.
Okay.
Which I think is beautiful.
It is.
True, talking about Samuel Palmer and Blake and the like, that is the art of a bygone age. But reading poets like MacNeice and W.A. Jordan, and I mean, this is bedsit love, if you like, or it's just timeless, except for the clothes and the bicycle. Okay, so this is predominantly green painting, which is landscape, obviously. It's a landscape painting. And these are the figures that I have used many times in similar paintings, and that's
with associations to Manet and Déjeuner sur l'herbe, maybe, or
well, actually to an older painting, in fact. Because I think I am going to call this Arcadia. And, you know, anybody who knows about painting will know about the 18 Arcadia Ego, the Poussin painting. And Poussin apparently the Poussin painting in Arcadia Ego was the first time the phrase was used. He invented the phrase. But Arcadia was and is still in central Greece, and was considered by the ancients as a land of milk and honey and easy living and peasants living a natural life, and life being good, sunshine, and the fruit grew on the trees and things like this. And Poussin painted this picture called 18 Arcadia Ego, which is usually translated I am in Arcadia also. And his painting is of a little group of peasants tracing the writing on a tomb, big stone tomb, which says Et in Arcadia Ego, which is generally interpreted as meaning that death is telling you that he's here anyway. So again, I'm interested to see how green I can make it. So
Sure.
all these different families of green, the blue greens and the yellow greens and the yellow and the indigo, just to see how luminous it can be made to be.
So the whole house, in a way, feels like the studio, to me, as
Well,
a business.
I must say, I don't make any great distinction between. I mean, my bedroom is the only room that is, a private room. I don't paint in there. I don't do anything in there except sleep and do my ironing and things, domestic chores. But I don't make any distinction at all between studio and living space.
And do you see your studio as a sanctuary?
No, I don't now, because a sanctuary implies private from other people. Well, there aren't any other people here, there's only me. I can remember when I had a family around that I hated them to go into my studio to see if work was half finished, or part or not finished, or partly finished. Because I didn't want them to judge what I was doing by something that I hadn't completed.
Do you care where your work goes after it leaves the studio, when you sell a piece of work, or you exhibit it, or you give it away? Do you care where your work goes?
No, I don't. I don't really. I assume that if people have bought it, or if I've given it to somebody, that it's because they like it. I do have this feeling that it's going to a good home. No, I don't. I do think that a painter is producing a product, and I'm happy to produce that product. I do care about the product. I do care that it has some value apart from being a picture of something. But no, I don't. I always used to I still do, call myself a jobbing artist. And I remember having arguments with friends in the past about being a jobbing artist. And they saying, you're not a jobbing artist, you're a proper artist. And I said, well, a jobbing artist is a proper artist. And I always quote to them that the Lucas Cranach, A Nymph by the Fountain, the painting I mentioned, which is in the Walker Art Gallery, which is a wonderful painting. After I'd seen it and admired it for some years, I found out that it was the 13th that he'd painted. But I bet every one of them is absolute beauty.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them all. But he did that because there was a demand for, people say, I'd like that painting. He'd say, well, somebody else has already bought it, but I'll paint you another one. I don't see anything particularly wrong about artists saying, I'll paint you another one. And I like the fact they were all different, because I couldn't make them the same. I mean, I'm always very intrigued by this business of making marks, and knowing that nobody's ever made that mark before. The difference between the marks might be so minute that nobody would ever notice, but it is that fingerprint that I think is important. I like that. So there's no knowing. Yeah.
What do you like about working in North Wales?
Since coming to live here, I just think it's absolutely beautiful. It's wonderful landscape. And because I can now travel around and look at nooks and crannies, I just never tire of finding new parts of it. I like its culture, I like Welsh culture, I like its Welsh history. I like the people. I mean, there's nothing about it really that I don't like. Even the weather is bearable. I mean, I like variations in weather. It provides lots of painting material, but it's not. I don't paint just landscapes. It's a poetic country. I mean, my roots are English. My real culture is English. And the mythology that I really get swallowed up in is classical Greek mythology, the mythology of Odyssey and the Iliad and all that, rather than Welsh Gaelic mythology. I don't find that particularly exciting or interesting, but I just like it. I'll stay here now.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Noel, for letting us into your studio.
Oh, it's been very interesting. And I've enjoyed the project for the very reason that I thought I wasn't going to enjoy it, is because I have been writing about it, which I don't normally do.
Right, okay.
So I've enjoyed that element. Whether I'll ever do it again with a commentary on my thought processes, even though I've done very little of that. But yes, it's been interesting, it's been good. I look forward to getting the paintings finished now.
Yeah, indeed.